So today what we're doing is we're going through the top downloaded presets from the Cortex cloud. I don't typically download presets from there. I'm usually more interested in creating new presets and uploading them. But I find it's good to kind of look through these occasionally to, one, just to see if you find something you really like, but also to see if there's kind of some tricks and tips we can pull out from what some other people are doing and see if we can apply that to some of the presets that we create. So I pulled down about 10 or 12 of these on my quad Cortex, and we're just going to go through them real quick, stop on a few things that seem interesting, but we're going to move pretty fast through these. And for this demo, I'm just using my new PRS SE CE24, and we'll use that to try some different humbucker and single coil tones. So we'll start out with this one. This one's from Rabia, and it's what it says is a simple stereo Plexi. So it's pretty straight ahead, but there's a couple things I do want to call out. One is, you see this little green dot here on these overdrive pedals. This means that this preset was created and uploaded before one of the update that did an update to this component. So that just means that it's using a legacy version of that. So if you ever see that, that's what that means. And the other thing I'm going to call out here is, if I play this, you might be able to hear it through the ambient mic in the room, but you're not hearing it through Logic because he's got the output set up to go out 1, out 2. So it's not outputting to the USB output. So if I wanted to go to Logic, I'm going to add in those in to USB 3 and 4. And now, just two Plexis into two 4x12s. He's got the two screamers on the front. If you just want to tighten up the tone, you can see that's what he's doing. He's got the overdrive really low, pushing the tone a little bit, pushing the level, so he's driving the front of the amps more. And he's using the EQ characteristics of the tube screamer to kind of shape the tone. So, like I said, overall, a pretty simple preset. This one is pretty cool. Again, this is Rabia, and this has a couple things going on. So he's coming in compressor, amp. I think he's just using a matchless. He's going into a digital delay, and then he's splitting, and he's got a wet path that's shifting it by an octave up. You can see the mix is 100%, and he's got another delay, mix is 100%. So this is a wet path, and then he's coming back in, going through the cabinet, and it's going down here, and it's splitting again. You've got another path with a pitch shift that's doing 2 octaves up, another delay. Again, this is all 100% mix, meaning it's an entirely wet path. And then everything's going through this reverb, and he's got a gain on the end to kind of bring up the level. Sometimes when you do this many splits with these kind of effects, the level can drop overall. But it's a pretty cool effect if you listen to it. So a couple oddities here that I noticed. One, he's got another cab down here. So this line is actually going through 2 cabinets. It's going through this one, coming down to row 3, splitting, and going through another cabinet. I'm not sure why he's doing that. The other thing I noticed is the delays are stereo delays, and he's got the ping pong on, but they're all getting routed through this mono cabinet, which means that stereo effect would be negated by the mono cabinet. So you could change this to just be a mono delay, and you'd get the same tone. If you wanted this to do the stereo ping pong effect, you would just change this cabinet to be a stereo cabinet. So something else I noticed. Let's move on. Cory Wong Funk Tour. So this one is really quiet, so I'm going to pump up the volume a little bit. So pretty straight ahead preset. We'll bring up the gig view. Turn on the envelope filter. We get a little bit of a wah thing. So maybe some fun. He's got some effects in here. Move on to, so this is from Tone Junkie. This is really a preset built to kind of display some of his captures. He's got two different 65 Deluxes. One's a clean, one's an overdrive. And then he's got a Klon, a Tube Screamer from the 80s, and a Blues Breaker. So some really good captures. The preset itself, a little too much ambience for me. I would probably turn off the modulated reverb on the end. And then maybe kick in the Centaur. But I mean, these are good captures if you want to grab them and play with them. Sparkle Clean. So this is a Martin Miller one. Again, the outputs, he's only going to 1 or 2. We need to change this to multi-out so I can record this through Logic. So he's using a capture, he calls it AC30-ish. I don't know what he's actually capturing, but obviously it's in that kind of Vox tone family. The other thing I like is he's got this tremolo on it with a very shallow depth. I don't use tremolo a lot, and usually it's not an effect I like too much, but this is kind of nice. With this shallow depth, it's pretty subtle. The other thing I noticed is this use of dual reverbs. It's not something I do a lot, and usually for me, reverb is just something you tack on the end and just to give it a little bit of kind of feeling of being in a room, a little bit of ambience. But this kind of sense of using a room reverb into a hall is kind of a blooming effect. I really like it. I think it's something I'm going to start looking at a little bit more. Let's see what we got here. Chunky EVH. So this seems like a pretty straight ahead. You got a kind of a 5150 kind of thing going on. Again, with a Tube Screamer in the front to tighten up the tone and running through a couple 4x12s. So just a nice. So nice chunky tone there. So this is one I actually like quite a bit. There's some scenes on this one. So this is another Rabia one. And he's using a Princeton 65 capture. And he's got a drive in front of it that's this Mad Pro Simple OD. And then he's got delay, a reverb, spring reverb. So this is acting like the reverb in the Fender amp. Then he goes through the cabinets and he's mixing a 2x12 with a 2x10. And then he's got another reverb. So you kind of get that effect of the spring reverb on the amp inside a room. And again, it's that dual reverb use. So it's a nice effect. I like it. Another Martin Miller one. Let's go ahead and change the output to multi-out so we can hear it through Logic. So it looks like maybe he's capturing the Plini plugin in a setting he likes. And again, he's just got his delay into those two reverbs. So main rhythm live. This is Kiko. So this is an interesting one. So the way he's got this set up is he's got his gate, noise gate here. And again, this is an older preset. A newer preset, you don't need this block. You can do that in the input block. He's running through a Tube Screamer into a Freeman rhythm, so heavy gain amp. He's got some EQ. He's got the cabinet, and then he's running out 1, 2. So this is going in right now into my studio monitors. But if you notice, he's got a split here where he's going through an EQ and he's going to send 1 and 2. So this is useful where you would send this output 1 and 2 to front of house with the cabinet, but he's splitting off 4 to go to this other send that maybe to a power amp and a cabinet on stage. So this is how you would do that. I'm going to go ahead and change this to use multiple outputs so we can hear it through Logic. Yeah, it's just that kind of Friedman goodness. And mainly live. So this is, again, it's Kiko. Same kind of thing. He's got the split, one with the cab, one without. And this is one I need to dig into really to get a sense of exactly how it's working. First thing I need to do is change the outs to use multi-outs again so we can hear this in Logic. So the first thing I'm going to point out is, so right now I have my guitar volume all the way off and we're not hearing anything. All I have to do to engage this, and I'm not sure exactly how this is working, is if I lift the guitar volume, at some point you're going to hear this G drone kick in. There it is. But now I can't turn it off. So this is being pushed. It has nothing to do with kind of the guitar sound. The guitar path, here I'm going to go ahead and mute this so we can not have to listen to that the whole time. The guitar path is this bottom. So again, we've got a gate, we've got a compressor, you can have a overdrive pedal here, you've got a capture of an amp with the cabinets, a chorus if you want it, and some delay, and then it goes up through reverb and goes out. So this is the path for just kind of playing on top of some of the chords. And then the other paths, if you look, first off, they have a utility gain in front of them where they've got the volume all the way off. So these aren't taking your guitar input at all. All they're doing is kind of generating their own tones. Same thing down here. And if we look at it, it's got the Fugue. It's using the envelope amount and the cutoff. You can see these are scene specific to shift the tone. It's then going through a fuzz, a pitch shifter, and then it's going through a flanger. This one is going up, and then this one has a polyoctaver getting shifted up 3 steps. But you can see all these are scene specific. So as we switch around, and we're going to start to hear the higher notes come in. And so those things are, you can see too, the Fugue is the envelope amount and the cutoffs are moving around to make the right notes. So we turn that back on. So that one's kind of fun to play with, and then the last one I grabbed was this 80s Dream. So this is just that kind of classic 80s. Let me give it a little bit of grit. The only thing interesting here is, if you notice, and I've never done this on any of my presets, row 1 is going to row 3 and 4. And that's interesting. I've always just gone to row 3, and then I would split row 4 from row 3. And one thing I was concerned with is, when it's splitting row 3 and 4, is it splitting the signal left and right? But it's not. It's sending both stereo signals to 3 and 4. And then in this case, he's running a delay on one path and a reverb on the other. So he's kind of running these in parallel and not kind of in sequence, which is kind of interesting. But there is a delay up here that's before both of them. I think this is an Earl DSP one. No, it's an Adams Architects. So, and he's the one that did the chunky EVH as well. So kind of an interesting idea. Again, a couple of new things here. So those are some of the top presets that I grabbed. It's kind of interesting. For me, some of the takeaways I have is, one, when you're grabbing these presets, pay close attention to how they're setting the outputs, because you need to make sure that you're getting all the outputs that you need for however you want to use it. For me, I need to hear the output in the room, and I need to get it into Logic. And a couple of these weren't coming into Logic, and I didn't even realize it because I could hear it in the room. The other thing is this idea of stacking reverbs is something that I want to get into more and really kind of play around with and come up with some ideas. Maybe there'll be a video in the future on that. There's definitely a couple captures in here that sound pretty good. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. And if you'd like me to do kind of more of these reviews of some of the presets out on the Quad Cortex, if there's something you see you're not quite understanding how it's working, I'd be happy to kind of go through it. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.